Next, there are two reports, as Dr. Skink has mentioned. The first is the technology report, so I'd ask Kylie Lindquist, Bridget Wilmot, and Mike Connors to come up. And the report begins on page 11 of Board Book. As they're getting set up, as you know, this is a report that we give twice a year on technology. We've been doing it for probably 4 or 5 years, and this is our last year of full implementation of one-to-one. So Bridget's here along with the rest of the group to tell us about that, as well as the future plans that we have for technology.
Good evening. I'm going to take the first part of the report, and then we'll go to Bridget.
And Mike can speak up a little bit. Marion, can we close that a little more? It's just it's hard to hear.
Okay, so as you can see, the first part of it is the infrastructure. For this summer, we're not planning any upgrades to our infrastructure. The last few years, we've been making upgrades, and we're pretty much caught up without the infrastructure being able to take care of all classes having Chromebooks. So this summer, we get to take the summer off for that part. The next part is the finance funding. There was a couple questions about what were some of the items under the one-to-one expenditures, specifically what was included with paid services. With the Chromebooks, for the paid services, what's included in there is GoGuardian, which is our filtering and tracking service that we use on the Chromebooks. It also includes the Google management license and the insurance for the Chromebooks, which cover breakage and accidental breakage.
I really asked the question of both of them, why is it going up so much compared to the last 2 years, those two items?
Are you talking about the future years?
Yeah, the paid services was 50/50, and now it's going to be 70/70.
The reason why actually the non-capital and paid services is going up so much is that this coming year we have to replace all the teachers. So that's an extra approximately 100 Chromebooks that we have to buy. And with the teachers, it's only usually every 4-year purchase. So, and when we buy more Chromebooks, we have to increase for the services too.
Thank you.
So, another question was the non-capital equipment. Basically, the non-capital equipment is the student and teacher Chromebooks. And capital outlay, basically capital outlay is anything that costs over $1,000 that would be required for the one-to-one stuff. So this year, basically most of the time that's the infrastructure equipment. So because we're not doing any infrastructure equipment for this coming up budget year, that's zeroed out.
So the non-capital, you said teachers get replaced out. Does those pools of Chromebooks get put into our backup Chromebook scenario?
Unfortunately, with the Chromebooks, they only have Google has made a policy where they only update Chromebooks for 4 to 5 years, depending on when they were manufactured. So they're only good. Once we get them back, usually they may have, like the ones that we get back this year, are pretty much going to be past their useful, or up to their useful life. So there are...
They purposely built in obsolescence with
Yes.
Chromebooks?
Yeah.
Chromebooks have no residual value.
That's why they're only 200.
That's why they're
Yeah.
so cheap up front.
I'm sure it also probably has something to do with the manufacturer. It guarantees that, every 4 years you're going to need to rotate out your stock.
So what do we do with them all then?
There's recycling services that will purchase them from us. So with this being the first year where we're going to be actually getting a large amount back, I'll be looking into the recycling services, and they'll be on the lists when we give the disposal lists. So we'll probably be able to get something back, but probably
Very
not a whole
minimal.
lot.
Would students want the opportunity to buy them back or keep their
Students
Chromebooks?
get to keep
They
Yeah,
can keep
we're-
them.
The students get to keep
These
them.
are the teacher
Yeah, it's part of the
These
deal.
are the teacher
Yes.
ones.
Yeah, the students get to keep them.
Okay.
Could you look at, is there
Their problem is
maybe there's places you could donate it to too if you can't really get anything, resell it?
Yeah, we could, look into that too.
I have a question.
Sure.
I thought Google services were free. What in that is paid?
The Google apps are free, such as Google Docs,
Right,
Google
right.
Gmail, and stuff like that. What we pay for is the licenses. So what the licenses give us the ability to is basically control the Chromebooks, push down policies, make sure that they have the correct their
Oh,
their
okay,
Chromebook
that
browser
part of
has to
the
set.
Chrome management is paid? I
Yes.
didn't realize
And we
that.
can push down printers and things like that.
Gotcha.
Okay, so if we go over the years, you'll see in the first column is the projected, basically what I had given to you guys last year for what we thought this would cost. And then the next one is actually what we ended up spending. You'll see that the difference is about $2,300 difference. And the reason for that is that the prices of the Chromebooks went up slightly from what we had projected, and also we still have some outstanding balance if you look on the very top. The next few years, the FY20, it does go up a significant jump, and I explained that that's because we have to purchase new Chromebooks for the teachers. And then the year after that, you'll see that the cost actually goes down back to pretty much what it was the last few years. So, are there any questions about the numbers?
Thanks, Mike.
So part of the thought process was that we were going to create a kind of an area where we can fix Chromebooks and things like that. That never came to fruition, did it?
We did try a
Student help desk.
help desk. The problem was that the participation was very low. There was a lot of times where we just we couldn't get kids to fill up all the periods. Actually, Bridget was part of that decision, along with myself and the librarian, where the help desk was actually being housed. And so what we ended up deciding to do is just to take it and work on the Chromebooks for the students in IT. We'll just have them bring them to us. So, any more questions? Bridget?
It's actually me.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. So Bridget and I are going to talk about the instructional technology side, and the first part of this portion of the report refers to the Bright Bites data review that we bring to the board each year as a way to capture the effectiveness of our one-to-one initiative through an analysis of classroom use of technology, access to technology, skill with technology, and environment for technology. So when the Bright Bites survey is administered, we're able to get a score on our district, one of 5 areas, and each year we have been seeing our score increase. We've been seeing some really good growth in that area. We are actually, I'm going to steal your thunder if I keep talking. We are actually in the process right now of collecting the data from this year's survey still. So the data that we're going to reference tonight is last year's survey results, which we have not yet presented to the board. April is a little earlier than we had presented in the past, so that's why we're still collecting our data for this year. And Bridget's going to be able to speak a little bit to where we are finding ourselves on that continuum from the Bright Bites survey. I'm not saying that anymore, right?
So if you look at the report at table 1, these are our overall and domain scores for 2017 and 2018. So that teal banner at the top is our overall score, which is an 1111, which is in the advanced category. And I made a note that that's pretty spectacular just to be in that advanced category, but also as a reminder, when we implemented this survey, we had one full class that wasn't even 1-to-1, and we're already getting into that advanced category, which is pretty exciting. If you take a look at the different domains Classroom, we are proficient. Access, we're exemplary. And then skills and environment are advanced. And a little later, we'll explain where this falls. I mean, you can see the numbers, but unless you can actually compare them to national numbers and local numbers, it doesn't really mean anything. But first, let's look at our numbers with the data trends.
So when you take a look at the data trends in Table 2, what you can see is that overall, each year the district score is increasing, which is what we would hope and expect to see as we are continuing through the 4 years of our one-to-one rollout. The 2017-18 score is 13 points higher than the previous score, and in addition to growing overall, we've grown in each of those 4 domains: classroom, access, skills, and environment. So we're showing a continuous and upward trend in all of those areas. And again, as Bridget mentioned, all of this being true when an entire class of our students did not have access to those Chromebooks. So we were not at full implementation at the point that these numbers are being shown.
And it's pretty exciting too, because we started this the very first year of our one-to-one implementation. So we have that data year 1, and so it'll be interesting to see where we end up year 4, and then finally when we aren't even concerned about the implementation anymore. All right, so if you look at Table 3, this is the comparison to the Cook County and the national scores. So RB is in the top column, or the top row, and if you compare our scores to the national score, we're 43 points higher than the overall national score, which is pretty spectacular, and we're significantly above in each of the 4 domains. And then looking at local schools, I always like to see what the local schools are doing. So the West Suburban Cook County scores were higher in every area except for access. We're 1 point lower, which again, that doesn't really concern me too much because we had an entire class that didn't have Chromebooks. So I don't think that's an area for concern. So again, a true testament, I think, to the hard work that our staff is putting in with the one-to-one initiative.
And just interject.
Sure, yeah.
First, Bright Bites is extremely expensive to buy, but West 40 pays for it for all the districts, and so that's also how we have the high number of users in West Suburban Cook County, because they're all using it for free, all 41 districts in West 40. So that's why that's why we have that data, and we know it's pretty much, I don't know a district in West 40 that's not using it, that's one-to-one.
Yeah.
So the next page in the report is Part 2, the year in review. So this is just some instructional technology highlights. I know that you've had this document, so I'm not going to read it all to you, but I'm going to highlight some of those things that are either new or that we're especially proud of. Bridget has it's always fun for me to get to sing Bridget's praises, because Bridget is really she's sort of the pillar of our one-to-one initiative. She's the backbone of the one-to-one initiative. I have teachers tell me all the time that they would not and could not be able to do what they do in their classroom without Bridget's expertise and her support. Part of that comes from the organizations that she attends, the meetings that she goes to, the conferences that she is a part of. She's working on technology articulation with our feeder schools. So when you see a list of all of those conferences, I tell Bridget each year, you find something that you want to go to and I'm paying for it, to make sure that she is able to get us on the cutting edge, and she does that due diligence better than anyone could have expected. So a couple of things that sort of highlight that in that instructional technology highlight section at the top, recognition for being in the top 5% of users worldwide of Screencastify, which is a screen and audio recording tool. And there was a question that came in about that in terms of kind of what does that mean? What does that get us? For us, it's kind of bragging rights. There isn't necessarily an award for that, but what that says to me, Screencastify is a program that we started talking about very early, because Bridget saw the power of Screencastify and its ability to support student learning and its ability to support student collaboration, students being able to show teachers what they were able to do, which is really the key. Ramona's shaking her head. And so what this recognition to us means is that when, as a school, we get behind an initiative and we support that initiative, our teachers take it and they run with it. In terms of when we talk about what does that mean, there are currently 10 million users of Screencastify worldwide. And so when we are looking at being one of the organizations that uses that the most for student success, that's just a testament to what we are able to accomplish together, as well as that continued recognition that we have as a Google reference district. And there was a question there about whether or not we've taken advantage of the opportunity to have site visits come out so that people can see what we're doing. And Bridget has hosted virtual site visits to collaborate with other schools on what kind of curriculum they're using, what kind of curriculum we're using. She's hosted the tech articulation site visits with the feeder schools 4 different times. And ultimately, after we talk a little bit more about blended learning, you'll kind of see where we're going with that. And that's our hope, to eventually bring some folks out to see what we're doing with blended learning as well. So again, to the credit of our teachers who are hungry for innovation, we have over 60 tech tools in use in the building. Bridget conducted a survey with our staff to see what they're using. Some of the reasons or the purposes behind the tech tools that they're using are there. For example, our Spanish classes use Skype a lot to communicate with different presenters. Jessica Maritzen does give students an opportunity to virtually connect with educators involved with National Geographic. We have data collection being used in our physics classes, where they have an ability to collect data from an experiment that feeds directly into the Chromebook, and then they can analyze that data, and the students really get an opportunity to work firsthand with data. Our math classes, particularly at the honors pre-calc level, are using the flipped classroom model so that students, when they're in classroom, have more connection time with the teacher, and they can use their device to be able to access the notes and the pre-work that they need to do. And in our CAP program, we're able to connect to Khan Academy, and through our Albert subscription, students are able to prep for their standardized tests, their EP tests. So we really have teachers all over the building doing a variety of things with technology to really enhance the teaching that goes on in their classrooms. And in terms of professional development, this year, as you know, we give up a faculty meeting each quarter so that we can have a technology professional development, and Bridget developed technology cohorts this year. So we had cohorts of staff members working together, collaborating together toward a shared goal with regard to technology, and that was on an ongoing basis. So it wasn't something that happened once and then it didn't happen again. We were able to come back each quarter and revisit those cohorts, and we had a really positive response to that as well. As we move forward, we are continuing to really strengthen our creation, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking. It's always been, since I got here and was brought into the One-to-One initiative in its first year of implementation, it's always been kind of Bridget's mantra, and she's really communicated it strongly to our staff, that technology does not replace anything. It's about enhancement, and it's about taking things to the next level and really seeing where our students can go and what our students are capable of because they're empowered by technology, and allow us really to differentiate what we do and customize what we do as educators to best suit the needs of our students. And that sort of bleeds into, like that segue?
Blended learning.
Blended learning.
Okay.
So we're really excited that we are going to be starting a blended learning pilot next year after several site visits to Huntley High School. And I'm going to let Bridget talk a little bit more about that, because she really has been the champion of blended learning, and we have some really exciting things on the horizon where that's concerned.
Yeah, so just to give you an overview of blended learning, and I also put it in the report, it's a combination of online and face-to-face instruction, and the whole goal is to personalize and differentiate instruction for students, and using technology as that vehicle to do that. So for our pilot, we're going to have 9 teachers across 5 different departments, very talented teachers, a lot of experienced teachers who are already strong teachers. And we are going to try to figure out exactly how we want to differentiate the learning with technology as the supporting tool. So it's always how we reach every single student, but how technology can support that. And I see this being really beneficial for Beyond, because I feel like we're in a key transition right now where we've finished our 4-year implementation, and we've worked really hard. There's been a lot of support from the administration, and the teachers and staff have really embraced it. But where do we go now? What do we do that we aren't looking at those logistics anymore, and we kind of know how things work? I think blended learning is the next phase for us. So when we say it's a pilot, it truly is a pilot in every sense of the word. We have done a lot of research. We've done site visits. Thankfully, due to Kylie's support, I've gone to so many conferences and learned about blended learning. I have connected with multiple educators who are doing blended learning across the state. There actually was a blended learning site that just got put up maybe about a month and a half ago where teachers are all connecting with each other. So we've done the research, we've done the groundwork, but now this really is, again, with the support of the administration, it's a teacher-driven pilot. So all the teachers are getting together in May to figure out the logistics. We're going to meet for 2 days. We're going to talk about instructional strategies, of course. We're going to talk about personalized learning, of course. But we want to figure out the nuts and bolts of how this pilot is going to work. And then the second time we meet, we'll propose it to the administration to make sure that we are falling in line with their expectations and what they want us to do. So I'm happy to answer questions about the pilot. I have a sense, a vision of where we're going. But really, once those 9 teachers meet and once we get together, that's when we'll be able to give you the day-to-day details of how everything is going to work and how we're going to move forward.
And when Bridget mentions about the administration, like I've already signed off on the pilot. It's just the working out the day-to-day stuff with the building level administration of, okay, on days when kids are supposed to be doing personalized learning, are they required to stay in the classroom, or will 201 be open and for them to, sit in a cubicle or sit on the couch by themselves and work on their project? Those are kind of the details we're working on, how they'll check in and we'll take attendance, but then will they be able to go to a library or wherever they need to go? So we're excited, Bridget. I attended one of the workshops with Bridget, as I told you, and they had me sold by lunch, I would say.
I think so, yeah.
So,
Can I ask, how were teachers selected? Did teachers volunteer? What were the parameters?
Yeah, so we really wanted this to be teacher-driven and inspired by the teachers to inspire other teachers, hopefully. So there was no, you must do this. It was, here's an email, here's PR, here's an informational session. Come learn about blended learning, come learn about the pilot. And I think we probably had 25 to 30 teachers attend during their lunch period, which again, I think is a testament to teachers here really wanting to improve instruction and learning for students. So then there was an application process. They filled out an application about why they were interested, some other questions I can't remember, but that was the most important, how they'd already used blended learning perhaps in their classroom. Then the applications were reviewed by Kylie, and then selection notices went out. So we ended up with 9, including me, and I think we have a good variety. We have 2 team teachers who teach in a co-taught environment, and we have teachers from science, English, AP, honors, all different levels. So I think it will give us a really good idea of how we can move forward with this.
So are we spending any time also to look at how we used our technology when we had the snow days? To kind of prepare, we should prepare for at least one.
Yeah, we have been reviewing. We had meetings with students after that happened. We had parents send in feedback. We met with the instructional coaches. So we kind of tried to tap into each stakeholder group and find out, how did this work for you? What can we do to make this better going forward in the future? So we really have been looking at not only the logistics of that, but also how do we make sure that what we're asking students to do on an e-learning day is a beneficial experience for them and it is a continuation of their learning. We don't want, in the event of an e-learning day, we don't want to have to stop the progression progression of student learning to have them do something completely unrelated. That's not what our intention is. And we are having those conversations because as we move forward, and I mentioned this to the superintendent just recently, we are going to get into situations where e-learning is going to be able to bail us out of some sticky spots. We just did the PSAT 9, the PSAT 10, and the SAT, and we did them all on the same day. And what we realized when we were doing them all on the same day this year is that next year it will be impossible to do them all on the same day because we have so many students that require accommodations on the test. And most of the accommodations for SAT are one-to-one accommodations. So we literally don't have enough adults physically in the building plus on our sub-roster to get that accomplished in the SAT next year while testing the 9th graders and the 10th graders at the same time. So we really are working to perfect e-learning because there are going to be situations in the future where we may have to call on that as a tool to help us meet our requirements in some other areas. And the feedback has been very honest and very collaborative, and so we think that we have a good foundation that we're going to be able to continue to build on.
And I just have one other wild idea. With all the innovations in technology, we talk about when the students have a substitute come in, sometimes they're watching like a movie. I mean, is there a way that maybe we can tap into almost like our e-learning day at
We
home
have teachers
to really
doing that,
start
yeah.
to tap into?
Absolutely. After, I think, the e-learning days that we had, I had a handful of teachers say to me, this is what I'm doing every time I have to be out of the building, because they have that ability then to ensure that their learning intentions are continued even when they're not in the building. And now that their students have some practice with how to access everything that they want them to access, it really does open it up to make sure that students are engaged in learning and meaningful learning experiences, even if a teacher, God forbid, has an illness and has to be out. So absolutely.
So do you guys analyze the data sets of the students who actually, on like the e-learning day, actually did the work versus knowing that you have the subset of who aren't very emotional, aren't motivated? And have you looked at that subset?
Anecdotally, yes.
But you haven't done detailed studies on it?
No, we haven't done a detailed study on
what
that.
what can technology do to get those who aren't motivated engaged into, they're not motivated sitting in a classroom.
We did have some teachers report in their classes with some of their more reluctant learners, the learners that we talk about not really doing school. In some cases, we had students who teachers were very surprised that their students logged on and were engaged, and that breeds the conversation of the non-traditional student, and what reaches every student is not the same. And for some of our students, gosh, as we continue to see more 504s for students with anxiety and school refusal issues, we are seeing that there are different ways to tap into some students. So we did have some teachers self-report that some of their students that they don't maybe see all of the time or aren't necessarily engaged when they're in the classroom did participate in the e-learning, somewhat to the teacher's surprise. But then when we start to think about it and we talk about it, we go, okay, so it's not, there's something else that's going on that's kind of the barrier to that work. But that's certainly something that we can study more in depth as well.
I'll encourage you to do that, to see if there's a way that...
And that's one of the things that we heard when we were at the site visit at Huntley as well, is that blended learning environment and that personalized learning really helped motivate some of the students that normally would not have been engaged in the classroom, and you heard it firsthand from the students. And you also heard firsthand from the students, like a student who had an IEP who said, I intentionally took this hard class as a blended learning class because I knew anytime there was a blended opportunity, I could get pretty much, as much support individually as I needed from the teacher that I wouldn't get in a traditional classroom because there wouldn't be 30 other students showing up. So that's what is exciting about blended learning.
That's why the pilot will shake some of that out.
Absolutely,
right?
I think so too. And we have a really nice range of classes in the pilot. So I really feel when you look at the list of teachers in the classes that we've got going into this, we are really going to get a good sample of the different types of students that we have walking our hallways and be able to have some good data pulled out of that study.
What does the summer work look like?
So what we're trying to do is in these 2 days in May, figure out the logistics, but then a big portion of that is looking at there's 7 different models in blended learning. So getting teachers familiar with that, and then the summer curriculum work is actually starting to work on the units themselves.
Okay.
So we want to make sure before they go off for the summer, they're in a very good place. And then when they come back, we will be meeting quite frequently to support them.
And Bridget did a good amount of research and found, you know, of course, when Bridget goes to research anything, she finds like the person who's responsible for the inception. And instead of just reading what they do, she calls them on the phone or emails them and, you know, talks to them. What is her name? Karen?
Oh, no, I can't
remember
Now
either.
I'm on
But
the spot.
so Bridget has connected with, you know, this pioneer of blended learning. So we were able to order her resources for all the teachers that are going to participate in the pilot, so they have some research basis as well. And again, we have that connection right away because Bridget went out there and hunted it down. So we feel really excited.
Probably hit her up on Twitter, right?
Yeah. Twitter is a great thing for educators.
Yes. Good job, guys.
Thanks.
Thank
Any other
you.
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Bridget. Good job.
Thank you.